I am the communications coordinator at St. Michael's by the Sea in Carlsbad. I've been working with them since October 2013. Since being there, we've removed the church logo and extended that brand through a new website and a new direction on our promotional materials and our messenger that we send out, our publication, our bi-monthly publication. It's been really great. They're a wonderful community and I've learned a lot, and I've been really excited to watch a brand start and watch how, be a part of it growing and watching it grow. So that's a little bit about me. I was wondering if we could just go around the room and introduce ourselves, kind of break the ice a little bit and talk about where you're from and what brought you to the class. Can I start here?
Hi, I'm Hannah Wilder. I'm the communications director for the Diocese. And actually, what brought us here today was Christy Tugin saying, hey, I want to have a workshop at Leadership Academy about graphic design, like how do we make great posters, how do we get people's attention, catch their eyes. So I went to the expert because if you see anything that St. Michael's puts out, it's beautiful, and it works. So I asked Megan, and here we are.
So I'm that person. I'm Christy Tugin. I'm the administrator at Christ Church in Coronado. I have limited skills with graphics, and I just want to pump them up because I go to other people's churches, and it's like, how did you do that?
Welcome, thank you.
Laura Sheridan Campbell, Holy Cross, Carlsbad, and just love this kind of stuff. And our people are all fanning out to different areas today, so I get to go to the yellow line.
And I'm Corday Manis, and I do communications at several churches in the diocese, and have loved the stuff that I have seen from St. Michael's. So wanted to find out, come learn your tricks.
Well, thank you very much.
I'm Catherine Ireland. I'm also from Christchurch, Coronado. Christy and I are kind of the joint communications team at church, so any help I can get is always
Wonderful.
I'm Mark Turner. I'm communications at the Cathedral, St. Paul's Cathedral, and always ready to learn more.
Wonderful.
I'm Carl Streeter. I'm from St. Timothy's. I'm the administrator there, along with all kinds of other jobs, including communication.
That's usually how it goes, right?
Yeah. Rattlesnake wrangler too.
That's important.
My name is Dexter Semple, and I'm from St. Luke's in North Park. We've got a small congregation, so we're trying to see how we can reach the community and make our brand more effective.
Awesome.
I'm Gwen Lynch from St. Mary's in the Valley, and we're a small church, and I kind of do it all, and in terms of like communications, and I would just like to freshen our look. So advice on how to do that.
Wonderful.
I'm Dave Decker. I'm with Trinity Escondido, and always need some new ideas of how things should look out there, but need some freshening.
Want to continue back there?
Jane Ricker from All Souls, and I'm the parish administrator, and I'm wanting to learn more.
That's wonderful. Awesome.
Claire Benton from Christchurch, and I'm looking for a job that uses these skills.
Wonderful.
Antoinette Barn, St. Barnabas, Borrego Springs, and I've got a cap on everything, so I figured I'm very interested in graphics.
Great. Thank you.
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
I'm Victoria Marin from St. Alban, and I am the program coordinator for our Welcome Church ministry, and we're looking for ways to expand that and get it more out in the public.
Great. That's wonderful.
Bob Boyd, I'm from the Cathedral. I'm a member of the pews. I'm not on committees and stuff, but I do put in my 2 cents. I'm here because Anna told me to be here.
I'm Nancy Tebow. I am the director of St. Andrew's Preschool in Sneedus. And I am here because I don't love this stuff and I want to learn.
That's a good reason.
I'm Ruby Arellano from St. Thomas Temecula. I'm responsible for communications, and I'm here because I'm tired of hijacking images from Google, and I want to make them more customized to us.
Awesome.
I'm Wendy Sandoval. I'm the parish and school administrative assistant over at St. John's in Chula Vista, and I also do the communications for both church and school. So I just want to learn more about graphics. I'm really interested in that, and try to, like other people said, freshen up things. Try to attract more parents and parishioners.
That's awesome.
I'm Paul Thompson from St. Anthony. It doesn't Hot Springs, and I'm here just to get some information.
Great. Welcome.
I'm Julie Christian. I'm the vicar of St. Anthony's in Desert Hot Springs. And we've really been upgrading our communications lately, and hope to continue to do so, and hope to gather some new ideas to augment our efforts. We're doing a good job. We could do a better job.
Awesome. Let's go as we can.
I'm Carlos Garcia from St. Philip. I'm a supply priest there. I used to be a graphic designer before I was ordained, so I think I want to know more about what's going on right now with graphic design in church.
Awesome. Well, I'm just so honored to be here, and thank you so much for coming. And I think that hope that this course can help accomplish that and teach you what you're looking for. And I've tried to condense it into somewhat of a formula to make it easier, because I do believe good graphics, it doesn't have to be super hard or complicated. Less is more, that's what I say, and there's an easy way to approach it. So we're going to dive in and start with the branding side of the course. Well, I'm sorry, I'll step back just a little bit. I'm a little nervous, so. Okay, great, thank you.
Yay.
Can I just ask a quick question? Are any of these slides going to be downloaded, emailed and downloaded?
Absolutely, I'll send them to Hannah, and
They'll be on the Diocesan website, and I'll send everybody a link.
Okay, for all the different workshops?
Yeah.
Perfect.
And I'm going to try and bust through a lot of information. So I'm hoping that it's not going to be overwhelming. Just try and allow it to digest, and it will be on the website, and I will give my information out. If anyone has any questions at any time, feel free to contact me in the future. I'd be happy to help. And what I'm going to try and do today is we're going to talk about branding and then pause to do a little exercise. I have a worksheet here to kind of go through things that you can look at to define your brand. Then we're going to dive into the design portion and talk about themes, color, and layout, and go into detail about those things. And then we'll dive into an exercise that hopefully will allow you to apply the information that we've learned today. So branding, we'll start there. It's your identity. It's a business's identity. A brand is the identity of a business. It's locked into an image or a name, a symbol of who you are and what you do and why you do it. It is, that information is embedded in the image that people see. It's synonymous with that name and the logo. And it really does take time and effort to build. And I don't think you're ever done building a brand. And I think from time to time you really do have to reinvent the brand, because things are always changing, and the way people take in visual information and the way they experience the world is always changing. So I think it's important to always be evaluating how effective your brand is and if it's reaching people the way you want it to. So here's a couple of examples of some major brands and images that we probably see all the time. So when you look at these images, what comes to mind? Does anyone want to just call something out? Food,
Money,
fun, cars.
Big business.
Do you have, like when I look at McDonald's, I can smell what a McDonald's smells like. I recall it instantly. Or I think about what it's like being in Starbucks, the way it smells, the way it looks, the experience that I have. And I think that is a successful brand. One that when you can just see an image, you recall that information immediately. That's the power of a brand. And it is possible to create that. I think these groups have spent hundreds of millions of dollars to make that happen. But the same properties that they use to make that happen, we can use in small businesses and churches as well. Because really, when you look at these things and you eliminate their identity, it's just a check mark, right? It's just a target or circles. It's a D, it's an apple, it's an M. But they have embedded who they are inside of that image. And that, to me, is what branding really is and what we should strive for as a business or a church. Businesses are churches. They're the same, really. So why is it important? Why is a brand important? And why should we try and build one? Because as we've seen, it improves the visibility and recognition of your church and your business. And that is priceless. The fact that when you look at a giant M and know that that's McDonald's and you know what it's going to taste like and what it smells like and what the experience is, I mean, that's priceless. That makes it easy for people to understand and to retain. And if people can understand and retain who you are and what you do and how you are experienced, then it's much easier for them to share that with other people and to invest in who you are. It's kind of like a domino effect. If they can see you, recognize you, understand you, and retain you, then they can be your songbirds and they can expand your brand for you. And I think that's the goal. So, where do we start? How do you begin to build a brand? And what would that look like? And for me, the first place really is to define the unique who, what, where, and whys of your church or business. How does it differentiate you from other people or other businesses? Secondly, what do you want people to experience when they think of your business or your church? That's huge, I think, the experience, because that is what really builds the relationship with your brand or your church, is that experience. We really do have relationships with brands. Maybe it's subconscious and we're not always aware of it, but we have a response, emotional response to a brand. And I think churches have an in on that because of how it's more of a spiritual organization and it is very emotional. So I think that can be used as an asset in building a brand. And then next, taking that information and thinking about and strategizing a symbol that embraces the nuts and bolts of who you are. That's the next step. And then after that, I think if you can define your brand in 5 words, that would be amazing. That makes it easy to share. It's kind of like your slogan, who you are, what you do, and why you do it. If you can define that in 5 words and you can share that with other people, it's much easier for them to retain it. So it might be kind of a lot of information, and what I'd like to do right now is just pause and pass out this worksheet. It's just kind of what we talked about. I'll pass that out. And I'm not expecting this worksheet to be filled out by any means. What I'm hoping is this worksheet will kind of get your mind thinking about your church, the value that you bring to your communities, and why you want people to be there, what you want them to experience, and how that is different from other churches around the community, and and maybe even the Episcopalian diocese, right? And I think it's not a silent exercise. It's a great time to brainstorm. You can chat amongst yourselves or ask a question. But it's definitely not something to rush through. But it's just allowing them to just kind of flow and just let things come out and really just brainstorm on the page. Right now, are there any questions? Is everyone kind of hanging in there? Yes.
Do you have 2 more of those?
Here, they can have mine. Okay. I printed 20 and I thought I would be way over, but I
Got one.
So should we chat amongst ourselves?
Yeah, if you want to, or if it's more of a silent experience for you, that's totally fine too. I'll turn on some tunes. Going like jazz. Yeah. 10 minutes or so, just to kind of get your mind moving and thinking about it.
You guys are from the same church. There you go. Might be a good idea. You say.
Want some help or thinking about it? Because when I approach designs at St. Michael's, always think about the brand. I think about the brand and the design it has. Yeah, I'm sorry.
Oh,
yes, please.
It was really less a question than an observation that because the Episcopal Church hasn't really done a great job of branding itself, and this diocese has not piggybacked on a national church brand, it's hard for the local churches to piggyback onto that brand. And, you know, like this flyer about the Fearless Love Grants has, for lack of a better term, the cross on a kite. That's not an Episcopal Church brand, it's recognizable. And so, as I say, we have the shield and everything, little stickers we put on our cars. It would be lovely if that were a recognizable brand that the diocese and the national church used in all of its communications, but it doesn't do it itself. So for us to come up with our own local brand we're creating a new wheel.
Yeah.
Okay.
And we were actually just talking about that, about how my personal vision for St. Michael's in the coming year, after the program year, is to really take it a step further and educate the community, because I think it's really educating people about what the church is. You have to do that. And then on top of that, how that works at your church and how that might be different or unique. And so there are, I think, a lot of obstacles that are in front of churches and different denominations of churches. And I think the way that I am going to try and approach that obstacle is building educational material that I can take out to the community and get the community to get excited about what we're doing and try and explain it to them in a way that an everyday person could understand it, not just inside people understanding it, but, and I'm not saying watering down the message. I don't think that's important. It's important to, it's about God, it's about Jesus, and that's what churches are, and you shouldn't, I don't think, take that away. But there's a way to make it tangible for people that are not Episcopalian or even churchgoers to understand what you do. And I think that's my next step, is to try and do that. Yeah.
Well, just a little bit on the same theme. So what is the relationship between each church's brand and the national brand? Because if you put the shield, of course we all know the shield, but you know, that has been a conversation in our own Holy Cross communications. Do we just lose the shield?
This subject came up recently among the national communicators about the shield. How recognizable is that? Well, it's very recognizable to Episcopalians and to almost no one else. So in your local community, it's more important for you to have something that's going to be recognizable to your local community than to try to incorporate that shield into your branding, because it doesn't mean anything to most people.
Yeah.
Well, you could if the national church and the diocese made an effort to incorporate it. As I say, the cross on a kite doesn't tell me anything.
I think the shield's outdated though. I think it's come and gone. I mean, I don't think
But
it
you know, the
speaks to-
Methodists did that, the cross with the red swag. I mean, and they use that as a brand, they did it, and everybody in any community knows that's the Methodist Church. Right? No?
Well, you had something you wanted to.
Mark and I from the cathedral, we find that doing a logo for a car company or a burger place, they're single focus. It's much easier to do something for a church, whether it's a big one or a little one. With all that's going on, it's very difficult. And the cathedral, I don't think has a logo. It has a slogan, at least I view it as a slogan. But the various activities, some of them maybe need a logo. So we may want to start looking that way, rather than as each of our parishes have their own little neat things. Although that could be cool if you're really creative, and I think that might be cool.
Right, but I think it's also important to connect all of those.
Yes.
In some way, because somebody may come at you at one way, whether it's your music or your activism, but you want to bring them all under the same tent, because that's what you are about. You're not about just activism. You're not just about music. You're about all of that.
But I don't think you can connect it through a logo. You know, that's, I think, the challenge.
Well, and I
I
wouldn't suggest a logo, but a similarity, you know, the kind of the same paradigm, the same, you know, ways of doing it, so that there is some connection between the two, but not necessarily.
But the point of a brand is it's instantly recognizable.
Yeah.
I can be in China, I can be in Italy, I can be in Rancho Bernardo, and I know what McDonald's logo is. That's what I'm saying. These are the major national, international logo brands that they use consistently. And that's what I'm saying. If we don't do this with any consistency across the board, across the diocese, across the national church, it really becomes, okay, I'm just flying solo out here, and you know, I'm cute little St. Anthony's in Desert Hot Springs, but you know, if you can't drive out from San Diego and you look at that, it's going to be, well, kind of like, who dat?
Yeah.
But Megan can't stop that.
You're absolutely right. No, we shouldn't compare ourselves to McDonald's, but we've got to figure out how to brand our particular congregations. Yeah.
It's very individual, and I think it's great. I think all these ideas are totally relevant, and they're wonderful to consider. And I think whatever the choice that your parish chooses to do is how that will reflect you. And that's really what it's about, how you want to identify yourself. And so with that, we'll move into the design portion. Because I think that's why everyone's really here, right? So the reason I brought up branding, it really is, it's such a big concept, but I try and bring the brand of St. Michael's into everything I do, because that really helps the brand to move forward, and it helps with that recognition. So when they see a poster, it helps to build upon the image of St. Michael's and the experience that they're going to have. The takeaways, I try and think about 5 things that define St. Michael's brand in a design perspective, and then I try and take those 5 things and bring that with me into every design project that I approach. So with that, we're going to talk about design and the elements of design, graphics, layout, and content, and how to build a poster. That's kind of what we're going to talk about. To me, design is alive. It's a living thing. And when people, it's like art. It moves you to have an experience, either negative or positive. And design is a form of art. It's a visual communication. And so it really is alive. And I think it's important to approach design with that in mind. That it's saying something, it's talking, and it's interacting with the person that's looking at it. And if we don't approach design with that in mind, I think it becomes very dead. Because design that moves people, that's how it gets them to invest in what you're doing, to be motivated to come to an event or come to church. It just activates people. It's visual information that creates a response in someone. And I think the first thing that I I think anyone should ask when creating a design is, how is it making me feel? How am I connecting to this design? Because if you're not connecting to it, chances are no one else will. So that's the first place to start. The next thing I ask myself is this design even interesting? Do I even like it? And if the answer is no, then probably need to work on it a little bit more. You know, it's really, you have to have a dialogue with what you're creating. And if you can't have a dialogue, then I think that's the first place to start. It really is an experience. As a designer, when you approach design, I think there's a mental part of it that's happening, but it is a feeling and it is experiential too, if that makes sense. So when I approach a poster or I create a poster, I want to think about how the eye is moving around the composition. And generally, the eye moves in the way that it reads, across and down. So what is helpful is to have focal points in the design that help the eye to move easily and digest information quickly. Because you only have so much time for a person's attention before they're done. And if they're not interested, they're going to walk away. I mean, I think that's what we have to think about design in this age of information overload, right? How can I capture their attention and get them to invest in what I'm talking about visually? So as you can see, this is just a short little diagram here of how the eye kind of moves. And if you can put a focal point somewhere to direct the eye back to its starting point, then it helps it to move. And that's what creates movement and makes it active and alive, is that movement and how your eye is traveling around the composition. So we're going to talk about how and what things we can do to create that movement and create focal points. The first place to start, I always start by developing a theme. What is the event? What is it about? What are we trying to accomplish? That's kind of the theme. And I focus on the theme and try and build around that. So I'll show you a couple of examples in a minute. The next place is color. Thinking about color choices and how they support the theme. How space is, how you're using the space in your design. Using repetition to help with movement and balance and creating contrast. Contrast creates interest for the eye. And then again, is it interesting? Do I even like the design? That's the next question. And does this design support the experience that I want someone to have at the event? Is it a good preview of what the event is going to be about? So with that, the theme. We want to capture the experience that we want people to have at this event through the theme. What is the event? Who is our audience? Who are we trying to capture to come to this event? Is it for men? Is it for families? Is it for children? Who is our audience? What do we want them to take away? What do we want them to remember? And don't forget the brand. It's a great way to extend the brand again. So here's a couple of examples. Looks like they're, so Strobe Tuesday. When I think of that, so our approach at St. Michael's is kind of modern, minimal, basic images using color. That's kind of our approach. So I thought, what better way? We'll use pancakes. When I look at this image, it makes me think about Sunday morning when my mom's making pancakes and I can smell it and it takes me back to that experience. So that's why I chose that, to kind of engage people in that way through an experience that they might associate to that. Same thing with Movie on the Green. When I think about movies, I think about popcorn. And I think about sitting at the movie theater and eating popcorn and the experience of what that's like, and it makes me happy. So I think that's a big thing. How can you engage people to make them feel your design, feel the experience? I think that's the, and we don't know, I mean, I don't always accomplish that, but that's what is good to strive for. That's the goal. The next part of the theme is font choices. Fonts make or break a design. They are really,
Can you say that again?
they really need to be considered. When I start a poster or any graphic project, I define my theme and I choose 2 fonts or 1 that support that theme. And I think, so here's a few different examples. And they all give kind of a different experience. It makes you think of different things. We have cursive and this kind of modern contemporary font, and this kind of, the top one makes me think of teenagers and like more street gritty kind of thing. You know, like fonts speak, and the way that they speak of a theme and a tone. So I can't stress enough how important it is to really take the time to think of fonts that work together, and because it helps set the theme. I don't use any more than 2 fonts because then it's too hard for the brain to really absorb the information. 2 fonts is just enough to create a little bit of contrast, or yeah, contrast is a good word. And I use weight and italics and colors to create even more of that contrast. Italic is great, using bold and different weights. If you can find fonts that have like 20 different weight sizes, I think that's another way to use fonts. So like there's light, regular, semi-bold.
So thickness and the letters.
Okay, yeah. So the same size, but just it's got a different look to it.
Yes, like even here, we can see, so when you see fonts, that word is a regular italic. It's the theme, that word above it is the same font, but in bold. And it's in capitals. So you can use the same font with different weights and sizes and use italics to create that contrast too. So that's another way to build that. And here's a couple, well, just a real quick breakdown. Sans serif fonts have no tails, and they're have more kind of a modern feel to them. Serif fonts, to me, are just a little more traditional, and they set a different tone. But when I use them, I try not to use one of each, unless they're vastly different. That's the key. They have to be noticeably different. And here's a few examples of just how to, I can't really see some of them too well, but it's fun to see how you can combine different fonts together. And it's worth the time to investigate that for any design project that you do. And I have a bunch of resources here I'm going to give you of where you can find free fonts and buy different fonts. And so there's things out there that make it easy to do that.
Is font selection on the basis of your target audience, or does it refer back to the branding again?
You know what I try? To me, it's the theme. And the theme is targeting the audience, I would say. That's how I connect those dots for myself. And if let's say so at St. Michael's there's Soul Youth, and that's for the teen group and tweens of the church. And so I try and keep the fonts modern and minimal, but yet kind of edgy. I choose an edgier font that's going to attract them, and not so much maybe their parents, but it makes it look cool, and you know, that's kind of how I approach it, versus let's say it's a women's group, and they're having a quiet day, and it's very like tea time, and you know, it just has a different vibe. Yes.
In your logo font, don't you keep that consistent?
I don't with posters. I try and keep whatever theme I'm using.
But I'm talking about your logo font, so wherever it says St. Michael's.
Yes, that stays.
It would always, your logo would say St. Michael's,
Yes.
it would be consistent font usage across that.
That's
Yeah.
right. And when I'm designing posters that are for outside of the church, then I will include the logo, or I will say St. Michael's in the font of our brand style guide fonts, which we have 2, and they're always that way, and they're always the same. But the poster, I try and tailor to the theme itself. Color is the same thing. Color is so important. If you can use color, strategize and pick the right colors, it can make your design pop. I would say fonts and colors and theme. If you can take anything away from this class, those would be the 3 things, because that will really help make designs more impactful. And choosing colors that support the theme. Colors create emotion, they have feelings, and they move you in certain ways. I would never use these bright, youthful colors for, like we were talking about, a tea time event. It just wouldn't fit. I'd probably use more of the retro colors, or things that were softer, kind of would draw a woman to feel a certain way. And so colors can really say a lot by the way make someone feel. And I try and stick, again, 2 to 3 colors max. Try not to make it too complicated. It just gets, there's too much visual information. People fizzle out, like their brain just, you know, make it as easy as possible. It does. Mine does, that's for sure.
Megan, can I ask, your style guide for St. Michael's, did you develop that?
I did. I worked with Father Dorn and another creative person on the team, and we put together several samples. It took a really long time to put that together, and even once we had it together, it's taken about a year to fine tune it. Just because we print all the mass booklets and all the bulletins, and finding out really what worked for St. Michael's visually. We moved from light to regular font size, weight, and we bumped up the size a little bit higher. So it took some time to really figure out what worked.
I would be curious as to how many of you here have a style guide for your parish? Well, the cathedral, that's right.
Oh, nice.
So, yeah.
It helps, because you spend less time thinking about it, and you just are, you go. It helps with time. And I would love to, it'd be fun to do another class and talk about that, because I think there's so much to say about that.
It's already being planned.
And does the diocese have a copy of these different style guides
No.
that could be used as reference? I mean, St. Paul's has one.
Yeah, we should put those all on one page and just have them on the diocesan website. That's a good idea.
Well, create a forum where we can all put one. I'm sorry.
Well, the next thing to talk about as far as composition goes is space. And I'm going to talk about negative space because it is our friend. White space is beautiful, and I try and use it. And I think space can be even used with color, but don't be afraid to use white space. The whole piece of composition does not need to be filled up. And I think it's the natural urge to want to do that, but sometimes when I approach a piece, I'll put everything that's in my mind, and then the next step is editing. What do I need to cut out so that it can say what it needs to say quickly, easily? And so that's, I think it's important to let your piece breathe. It has to breathe. It needs to be able to have a voice and speak for itself. Do the work for you, you know? Yeah.
What graphics package do you use?
For graphics to,
These posters.
I think, well, the program to
Yeah.
put it together,
Yeah.
I use InDesign. And I find that that is the easiest program. I hate Word so much.
Word is not a graphic.
No,
It's not even in the same category.
No, and because a lot of people have Word already, I think or PowerPoint is one way to organize things, but InDesign, there's nonprofit licenses that you can get, and you can put them onto computers. That's what we did. We just broke down about 3 licenses, put them on everyone's computer, and then we all share. Father Doran can look at the same thing I'm looking at, that the parish administrator is looking at, and we work together to do our different pieces at different times. And I found that to be, it has saved us so much time. We get so much more done that way. So yeah. That's on my sheet here too. I have places to get graphics, fonts, and programs to use for putting together these compositions.
Is that software pretty easy to learn?
It really
Or
is actually. InDesign is really easy, and there's a lot of tutorials out there. I think it's an Adobe product, but it's the easiest one to learn, I think, in my opinion. It's not for just designers. It's for everyday users. So don't feel intimidated. It's, I recommend it a lot. It's a good one. Text can also be used as negative space. And here's a couple of examples. You can't see it so much here. But this can be considered negative space. It's mimicking this color. So it's repeating it and creating kind of balance in that way and movement. Same thing right here. We're using blocks of color and text for negative space. And it's kind of mimicking and repeating the negative white space that's here. So we have this kind of repetition, a movement that's going on, your eye sees this and it pulls it down to this blue and it moves. Same here, you have the white text and it just helps to circulate your eyes around the piece, which is what makes it interesting. And that's what keeps people looking at it.
So you use St. Michael's at any color? It's not all the same color for what you're doing, or is you have a set color?
For our logo and things that are parish specific, I try and use these two colors. It doesn't look so great on here, but it's kind of a gold and a blue, and a light blue-gray. Those are our three colors in there in the style guide. But anything that's relevant to that, or we want to extend the brand, we use those colors. And that's why I chose it for this poster, because it was the anniversary celebration.
Beautiful.
Thank you very much. I love that font. It was,
What is that font?
it's called Nutraface.
Oh, okay.
And I bought it, we bought it on myfonts.com. They have a lot of current fonts, things that are here now, and I see it everywhere. Disney uses it, and Crest uses it. It's pretty amazing. The next piece that I really try and incorporate is repetition, like we had talked about, and we can kind of see it right here, the blues. So I kept colors, and it kind of helps your eyes circulate. So you see duct tape, March, and then the blue and the dispenser, and it brings your eye around. And then you have the darker blue in 3 different places. So it's helping. That's what's creating that movement. But it also helps create balance. Your eyes can kind of rest because it's not like it's floating off in space. It brings it back in and it's like, oh, okay, yeah, it's gonna be okay. On the opposite side of the spectrum, I use a lot of contrast. Contrast creates interest. When you look at that, your eye just is like, gets sucked into the piece, or it does for me. But the thing with contrast is it only really works if the pieces that are contrasting are really noticeably different, and that's how you really get that effect. And you can use that with colors and text and graphics. There's a variety of ways that you can use contrast and repetition. Yeah.
So in this piece, do you mean the contrast of the hat and the magnifying glass with the colors, or what's the contrast here?
The contrast that I think for me is these colors really popping against each other, and then you also have the darkness of these colors and the white, and there's kind of that contrast going too.
Well, and you've got that kind of modern font up there, and that graphic is kind of a Sherlock Holmesy 1800s kind of graphic. Those two are contrast for me.
That's true, actually. That's a good point. Those two things, and it's font choice again. This was for a youth group event, and I tried to go with a grittier font that would be a little bit on the edge, and I chose. That was my theme. I chose one picture to define the theme, so it was easy for your mind to wrap around, and it's kind of.
That was used in your church, so you didn't have to tell people where it is. Because outside, you wouldn't know that you're going to St. Michael's, because it's not there.
Well, and you can't see the whole thing either, right?
No, and this wasn't promoted outside of the church, because there's a piece later on that, when I approach design, that's another piece that I ask is it for the church or is it for the public? And so if it's for the public, I always make sure to include the logo, the name, and address, contact information. But I found that it's kind of overload if it's just for the parish, because they're there and they don't know, and so it just kind of creates unnecessary stuff. Okay, so a design formula, if you will. I always start with a strong focal point, like we saw in a few examples before. Take one graphic that really is strong, that creates the theme, that supports the theme, and then I always have the title of the event. Oh, you can't see it at all.
It's beautiful. It caught my eye.
I wish
He told it.
Can anyone see that? Is that hard to see? Probably. Well, okay, sorry about that. So basically you have a graphic and then you make sure that you have a title and where and when the event is. And those are the key pieces. And then details of the event and how to contact someone to register. And for me, there's a hierarchy of that information. What do you want people to notice first? So that should be the focal point. And then what's the next thing? And the next thing and the next thing. And that's how you organize your visual space. And you use contrast, space, colors, and fonts to do that.
And internally, do you use a lot of paper for these things, or is it digital?
Because a lot of paper.
Yeah. I was interested to know, would your design be different if it weren't print media?
Well, you know what?
Or
No,
not so much?
If we had more restraints on our printing, then it probably would be different. I'm really lucky that I have a ton of freedom in that way. Yeah, go ahead.
That's what I was about to ask. Are you printing all the color?
Yeah. And we have a high quality printer at the office, and we have a pretty good deal on color copies. I think we do our messenger publication in-house. It does the whole thing and it prints it really professionally.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
I'm
Does
so lucky.
anybody, do any environmentalist concerns get raised?
No, actually, I think we really try and minimalize it. I think for every event, I just print enough that needs to be posted, and then we print a few flyers, and that's all. Really try and keep it low. And I think that it's hard. It's hard to get noticed.
Those flyers to your webpage?
Everything goes to the website, yeah. It's flyers, posters, website. If there's events, I post them on community sites, anywhere that I can. Social media, that's another place. Facebook, Twitter.
That's a question.
Yeah.
How detailed do you get in calibrating your screen versus your printer? Or do you do all that stuff?
Can you say the first part again?
How detailed do you get in calibrating what you see on your screen versus your printer? Do you get that detailed in color space and all that stuff?
Like RGB and CMYK, and I've noticed I'll switch, and whichever color I like better when it's printed.
Okay, so maybe focus on is printed.
Yeah.
Okay, so you don't care what you see matters, but more what you print matters.
I think so, yeah. And if it looks better in the CMYK spin, then I'll print it that way. And design allows you to switch really easily, which is really nice. So I'll print it in RGB. I think I always design it for web, and then I'll print it after that.
So the second point in social media looks one way, and the print could look different.
It could, because with print, you're working with inks and CMYK, and on social media and the web, it's the RGB space, so one's with light and one's with ink, so they'll never really, I don't spend too much time really trying to make them look exactly the same, because that could take a lot of time, and if there was more time, maybe I would. I think it's good if you can, but it's really hard, and you print a lot to make it line up exactly the same. So we talked about priority of information and how it flows in a composition. Think about where the eye is moving and how it moves, and place your priority of items in the order you want people to see it. If people don't like the title and they don't want to go to the event, they're going to look for that right away. Is this event for me? Do I care? No? Okay, great, I'm out of here. Is it a theme that I'm interested? No? Okay, great, I'm out of here. But if they look at the pieces in that order, then it takes them down that trail in the order of information they're looking for. I always put event details as my last priority of information, because if someone makes it that far, then they'll probably want to read it, but I don't think most people do. They want to know who, when, where, and why, you know? So that's how I organize a poster, and I think it really does matter. It's important. Here's some examples. There's a theme, and then our eyes go directly to that. and then they kind of move around. It's hard to see it here, but this is another example. You have that orange that's kind of pulling your eye around. This text is also the same color as this, so it helps to create this movement here, and your eyes pop here and here and here. Then you kind of see the important pieces of the poster.
It's almost like you just have this impression and like it kind of hits you.
Yes, that's a good way
Like
of
you don't
putting
even
it.
have to read it.
And I think that, to me, is the goal. Because if that can do that to a person, then that impression stays and they think about it. Kind of goes along with branding. And I try and brand every event. I guess it's like a mini brand. That's kind of what I try and do. That's a good way of putting it. And I think, okay, here's the content side. And we probably don't have time to go over this side of it. I think I'm way late now, but I'll give you all this information. This is how I approach building content, the title and date, and I have all this and I'll give it to you before you guys go. But it just has helped me to kind of lay out the basic information that people really want to know. What are the special features? What am I going to gain from this? What am I going to learn? I think it's important to keep it simple, straight to the point. Don't overclutter it with text. Because then I think you have less of a chance of people reading it. And the goal is for people to take it in. Less is more. And what I always do is if I do have a lot of text, then I'll put that on the website and give people a way to get more information. But I try not to clutter a design with too much text. And here's an example.
I'm already bored.
Not interesting.
Can you go back to that? Oh yeah.
It's not as exciting, right? Who cares?
I'm done.
But on the Stroke Tuesday one, you put a little
Yeah.
bit down there.
Yeah.
So what made you decide, oh, we need more explanation of what this is?
Some things are outside my control. I try and, because I'll work with different ministry leaders, and I'll come up with one idea, and they'll say, oh, I really want this to be more of the focus. Or I really want, for that one, it was important for the person working on it, for people to know about that information, and so that was why it had more of a visual presence there.
Because we had the same
Education.
discussion, and I'm probably in a weird way with Father Doran, and they're like, who cares? It's pancakes. That's what
You want to educate them on that poster.
Get them to the event, and then you educate them.
Yeah.
You're absolutely right.
Yeah, it feels like we have to unlearn a lot of stuff.
And we are learning too. I think it's been a great year in really figuring out what's been working and what hasn't. And I would say next year I'm going to approach a lot of things differently based on what I've learned. And I think, if anything, that's really what it is. It's a learning curve, and I don't think it will ever end. And it will be different for any church or any business. And so it's just kind of a ride. Just got to ride the wave.
The Shrove Tuesday poster will not look the same.
I think
Bottom will be gone.
Yeah.
A learning experience.
Yes, I think so.
But
There you are.
I
That
think
was the key.
sometimes, I mean, I like, a lot of my people like complete sentences. You know, if I don't put a period somewhere,
Oh.
they get it. So I irritate them by not making the, sometimes you can get the same information by just doing key words and just getting it out. Not this dissertation by a priest to get you the information, but
Do a world.
It's both words.
exactly.
Word
But-
cloud.
Correct.
Well, I have to edit myself, because I'm the one doing the So yeah, I already do that.
Maybe you should send it over to St. Michael, so they can give you a critique.
The cheerleader, I try to do the cheerleader version of, go team, go!
That's good. I think less is more, and I have to, even with this content kind of layout of how to put it together, I have to stop because I'm thinking, would I even read that? Do I even care? Because if I don't, why should I expect someone else to? You know? And then there's also a large range of audiences, right? And I think every church is experiencing this. You have such a large range of generational gaps, and you have all the way to 80-year-olds to teenagers, and how do you make a message that is interesting to all of those audiences? And that's you're gonna rip your hair out trying to make it happen, but I think it's something to consider. And some people prefer to have more text, and they want to learn and read, but the younger generations could care less because they're just their brains are just going a million miles a minute.
But I think you can accomplish that by kind of a drill down effect. I mean, where you can utilize more information, and so if you want more information, you can get his dissertation on the stroke and why it's important to our spiritual life. You know, or a pancake recipe, depending on what So to me, a poster is like, it gives me an action item to move me towards something. So for those of us who want that, we go. If for those who care less, we're done. But I think there has to be an action item that pulls us into that. Because there could be people who are, like you're saying, you know, an 80-year-old wants that. Or you might find a teenager that say, hey, what's this stroke thing? And then go from there. So I think to me, a poster is a gateway to the thing.
I prefer to approach it that way because it already loses me if there's too much stuff on there, you know, and I'm like, I don't want to lose other people. We want to capture, I agree. I think that's right on. Very well said.
Yeah. I once heard that people maybe said this in a Z, like this, and they'll look at a poster and they'll see.
I'm trying to do I do that? Yeah.
And so I always put my call to action being rolled across the bottom, like register today or whatever it is. Do you do that?
I do, actually. I do, right. I always put it at the bottom, and I try and make it stand out, and it's one of the focal points. I try and make it one of my eye-catching points, and...
Why would you put it in the middle, on the right, say flush left, or flush right?
Why?
So you can get to it.
I think the bottom,
Yeah.
your eyes going down, and it really depends on the design.
But if you're looking online, you have to scroll somehow. So you're going to lose it.
Yes. That's a tough one. And we don't, on our homepage, I try and make everything pictures. So if people see the picture, then they scroll down and learn more. So I try to make it way more visual to capture that. But it's,
And I would almost argue that we're not left, right? I think we're down, scroll down. I mean, you know, our phones, I think I'm getting to the point where I just move straight down. I don't know if I move across, but.
for me, it's like a triangle. I kind of go like this. I'll go this way, and then I'll kind of come down. And then you just, like, people don't even read all of it. You just see certain pieces of words. And so I think it has to be very strategic in the words that you place. And I think action words are good. Trying to motivate people with words. Because if they make it to that point, then you just want to even take it a step further to really get them excited about it. And it has to be very strategic, and it takes a lot of time. It's a whole nother piece of the puzzle, really. But I try and make the call to action very highlighted and in your face, because if that's the only thing they see, then that's great, because chances are it will be. You know, that's how I think about it. But I think I've gone like super over. Have I not?
Yeah, we're supposed to end on
Oh, right on time. Well,
Bravo!
okay.